All right, here we go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors. A meeting of the State and City Council for Monday, the 16th of August in the year 2021. We are here at the State and Community Center. The council is mostly present. Councilor Chris Moen is visiting us via Zoom. I see a faint representation of him. That's because the lights are on, but he's there working with us. So let's start, if you would, by joining me for the flag salute, please. Here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. Are there any additions to the agenda? Are there any declarations of ex-parte contact, conflicts of interest, bias, etc.? Don't appear to be any appointments this evening. Alyssa, is there any public comment that you know of?
No, Mayor, we did not receive any written or requests for virtual.
Okay, and there's no one in the audience for in-person tonight, okay? All right, item of business, a consent agenda for the 2nd of August of this year. And has everyone had a chance to look at those? And if so, I would ask for some action to approve those.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, thank you.
It's Councilor Patty, by the way.
Is there a second, please?
Counselor Hook seconds.
Okay. A motion and a second to approve the August 2nd, 2021 City Council meetings as presented. Would you poll the council, please, Alyssa? Thank you.
Sure. Counselor Mullen,
Yes.
Mullen.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. There's no public hearings tonight. There are no public hearings tonight. So under general business, the City Council minutes staff report, and these will be a couple of sets of minutes from mostly July, aren't they?
Yeah, Mayor, one of them is the June 21st meeting and the other one is July 19th.
Okay.
And we were unable to pass them last time due to abstentions of council members who weren't present at the meeting. So we're bringing them forward as two separate items to make a motion on.
Mm-hmm. Long after the fact, I asked Keith here just the other day, I said, I didn't think of it at the time. I don't know why. Just didn't. I wondered if I could have voted to break those ties. And he was going to investigate that because it just didn't occur to me at the time to even suggest doing that. But then it came to me later. Keith?
Well, since Ross is on here, I'll see if Ross wants to hop on. And Ross Williamson from LG. LG is our city attorney. And Ross is who assisted me in going through the navigation of the question of the abstentions and the voting and the Roberts rules.
So to answer the mayor's question, there wasn't a tie vote here. It was there were 2 votes in favor and there were 2 abstentions. So it was a vote of 2-0. So the tie vote provision in the charter wouldn't come into play here. It was after talking with Keith, it was my opinion that the vote of 2-0 because there were 4 members of the council at the meeting, under the charter, a majority of, an express majority of those in the quorum need to vote in favor of a motion to pass it. So that would have required a majority of the 4, which was 3. And so since only 2 voted in favor, it was my opinion that those motions did not carry.
Okay. Okay. So not even an issue. Good. Okay. So where do we go from there, Keith?
A council decision on what they'd like to do on those minutes.
Okay.
Mayor Porter,
Yes.
I'm a little confused. You can say that I maybe don't pick things up too quickly on when it's legal jargon. So for those, I thought there was only 3 counselors present. Were there 4 of us?
There were 4 counselors that were
Mhm.
present.
Okay, but just one of the 2 of us weren't able to vote.
Yeah, so there were the 2 sets of minutes, and at one of the meetings, 2 of you were not at it and abstained, and at the other one, a different 2.
So do we have to
abstained.
vote on those again? Is that what I'm understanding?
Right.
Because 3
Right,
people didn't
because
vote.
It was considered it had failed due to the
Okay.
abstentions.
Okay, all right, well, then I'm glad that we asked, because then we have to vote on them again tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask Ross a question about abstaining from, I know, Keith, we talked about this, but, or maybe it's you, or whoever it is, but
I'd
we
be
kind of
happy to
had a
answer, Ross.
conversation about this, and like, if you watch the meetings and you feel confident that that is what happened, it matches up.
So let's see if
Do
I
you
can
have to
remember.
be at
Yeah,
the meeting in order to vote?
I sent the staff a kind of or the council a memo on this, but essentially, you have the right to vote on anything that you would like to vote on. The only times that there would be consideration beyond that that's required would be ex parte communications, conflicts, bias, and that sort of nature. So there is no obligation for a certain standard to be met for you to vote on those minutes, even if you weren't here. Now, I understand council members are taking the position, if I'm not here, I prefer not to vote on them. But the other thing you can do is, and Ross may have the ORS available, you can just say, I'm voting to affirm these as minutes according to the ORS that defines what minutes are. You can state, publicly if you want to, I have gone back and watched the meeting, so that way I am. Or essentially, you can just say, I'm confirming with those that are here and supporting that they say these are true and accurate minutes. So I think those are sort of the criteria that are in place for doing that. It's all what you as a council member are comfortable, doing. But I think there are definitely avenues there for a vote, even if you're not here, or an explanation if you want to give one to the community. And I'll let Ross hop on if he thinks I misspoke or would like to clarify. Next thing.
No, I guess the only thing I will say is I think a vote to approve the minutes is not really, you're not attesting to their accuracy. You're just, as a body, as the council body, you're saying, these are going to be our minutes for this meeting. And I think even if you're not there, you could say, yeah, those minutes look sufficient to me. I will concede with the rest of the council and have those minutes reflect the meeting that took place.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it's
Yes.
Councilor Patty. With that, I would motion that we approve the June 21, 2021 City Council minutes as presented.
Second.
And I have a question real quick. Can I do both motions on this or no?
If you want to, you can definitely combine them
Okay.
into one motion.
That's what I was hoping. So I'd also like to move that we approve the July 19, 2021 City Council minutes as presented as well.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve both sets of minutes from the June 21 and July 19th, which have been brought back to us for affirmation. So, Alyssa, go ahead and poll the council, please.
Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
With the new information from our city attorney, I will vote yes on this, even though I was not at the June 21st meeting.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Mullen.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. One last comment on that, and that is that I don't think we've ever been, maybe some of us individually, challenged on why we would vote for approving the minutes of a previous meeting if we weren't there. I mean, has anyone ever been challenged on that by a citizen that watched the film and said, well, you weren't there? How could you vote yes on those minutes? I don't think it's ever happened, has it?
Mayor Porter, I think it's more of, for me at least, I'll speak for myself, just my newness still to the position being my first term, just
Okay.
wanting to be accurate. And, you know, we haven't had legal counsel here to ask those questions.
Okay.
So that's really where it is for me. It's not so much that I am afraid that someone is going to come and challenge it. It's just I want to be accurate and make sure that I'm not
Okay.
making too many mistakes.
No, that's fine. All right. Okay. All right, thank you. Let's see, what's next? What be next? Resolution number 1029, revised fees and charges for various city services for the year 2021-22 fiscal year. And a staff report by Susanna. There she is. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Thank you. So this evening, what I have is we're bringing the pool rates back for approval, and we combined it so that it's approved in one resolution. And what I've done for the pool is gone and looked at other smaller pools for small cities around us, looked at how they did their structures, talked to a couple different pool managers on why they structured their rates that way, took a look at what our operating cost actually is, and looked at the difference from other cities between residents and non-residents. And those are the rates that I brought before you for this evening for approval. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay.
Mayor Porter.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Susanna, I really appreciate all of the work that you did to go and look at other pools. That is really great information to know. The one thing that I'm really concerned about, given the economic times that we're in and the large jump that I'm seeing this number be, is the monthly memberships for family. It looks like it was, not to mention the cap at 4 people, because we have a lot of families that are larger in our town, and I don't know that up to 4 people is going to really serve our citizens. But I'm seeing that it was, for residents, it was $55 a month, which I would agree is very low. But a jump to $176 a month for only a family of 4, I cannot get behind that. I just, especially with that cap of 4 people.
That is the average rate from what the other cities are doing, so we're in line with the other communities. You could change it to higher than 4 if you like, or either way, it's fine if you want to, for a change that you want to make on that. I saw that the other cities all did families of 4, but we can change that. I don't have good data for how many members were a family in our system. There's some changes I'm going to need to make to going forward, to having a really good look at what we're collecting, and then I'll after at least a good 6 months of pool activity, will let me know what kind of changes else we could make, but we can adjust it as you feel we need to for starting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Susanna, so let's say like a drop-in rate, this is for like an open swim or a class? Or what is it, what does the drop-in rate cover? Because I was confused even as a consumer, and we kind of had this conversation before. I didn't realize you could use your punch cards for classes and I'm not talking about swim classes, like aerobic classes. And my only concern for like what we were doing last time is that our open swims weren't a consistent like 3-hour block of time. Some of them were 1 hour, some were 3, some were 2.5, but they were all the same price. So, are you, getting your swim time worth out of that drop-in time? That's what I was thinking about. And then, Paige, if you look, Counselor Orr, Hook, who are you? Who am I? Counselor Hook. So the monthly membership rates, if you do 2 adults and 2 kids, it's $220. I've had a long day, guys. It's $220, and so your family up to, that's just a comment I wanted to make, up to 4 people is $176. That's just purely a factual comment. It's neither here nor there, but Susanna.
So I'm in the process of still working with, we have our pool supervisor hired, and Emily and I are working on the pool schedule right now. Saturdays will be family day. We're going to do a class in the morning or maybe a swim meet, depending on what time of the year. And the afternoon is strictly for families. Slide will be running every Saturday, and that's for that wide open. I don't know where else I put them in during the week at this point. I'm still talking to the schools for the 3rd grader swim lessons, making sure I've got all the swim teams schedules figured out and the meets and those things, and then putting that around it. But they come for the day. It doesn't matter. It's that drop in for that. They can use just if they want to take a class that day, just pay the $5 or $5, whichever it is. If they're an adult, $5.50. They can use it. If they do a punch card, they can use a punch card any day. It doesn't matter. If they do a punch card and it's a family, they can punch 4 if there's 4 coming and they're all in the same. The only thing we want the punch cards to do is stay with the same age bracket. So if I got a punch card for a child, it doesn't matter how many children come in, they'll just be 1 punch for each child that came in. If it's an adult, the same thing. It'll just be, if 2 adults came, then you would punch it twice for the 2 adults. I don't really have or see a need to limit that, and there's no expiration dates on the punch cards. Does that help? Is that what you were asking? I hope that's what.
Yes. So, like, if they come for, is it 1 punch a day, or is it 1 punch an activity? So if you come for like a class and open swim, like, are they 2 separate, or like 2 separate entrance fees?
I never thought to ask that question, but honestly, I don't have an issue having it be for the day.
Okay.
I don't think that would be.
I'm not necessarily going to hold, I'm okay with that answer. I'm not necessarily going to hold you to that right now because I did put you on the spot. So if.
I had to ask that question when I was trying to compare other cities,
Sure.
but it's not unfeasible at this point as the pool opens to start with that, see what happens, track it, and if we need to make an adjustment, because one of the things is I don't really know how many are gonna really come back, or what is with all the changes with COVID. So I have no, I don't think it would be an issue to leave it kind of bigger parameters at this point, and see what happens with it.
Okay. Like at the indoor play place, you pay one fee and then you get to go all day. So it's just a thought. Thank you.
Mayor Porter. I have a question for Susanna again.
Go ahead.
Still on the family rate, what I think I'm hearing, and I may be wrong here, is, because a lot of information, is that for the family, it sounds like the monthly membership only applies to basically any time that you can come in for things that aren't like swim lessons. So like your family could come and sign up for a class with that monthly membership, but maybe not like actual swim lessons. Swim lessons are separate. So for small children then, that are on this family pass, we're seeing only about 4 opportunities for the whole family to come during the month on Saturdays. And we're seeing it at 176. So if you divide that per person, it's still coming out to be like $11 a person per time that they come. And so it would actually be cheaper to do the drop-in rate for your family. So I would encourage you to look at some of these scenarios, because you want people to sign up for this auto-deduct monthly membership so that there's a streamlinement of funds. And we have, first off, that cap of 4 people is an issue, but increasing the rate monthly, which looks like over triple what we had before, or at triple what we had before, just for the resident, that's going to be really shocking for our community to see. And I don't know what kind of backlash that's going to have. And maybe I'm reading this wrong, but I mean, it looks like it was $55 before, and I understand there has to be an increase. But maybe it's a increase over time, not a jump to $176 a month. I mean, that's a lot.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead,
Counselor
Counselor.
Patty.
Yeah.
I just had a question, just to clarify Counselor Hook's point here.
Susanna, you're freezing. You're freezing on the screen, so we didn't hear you.
Okay, I think David had something to say first.
Yeah, I just had a quick clarifying question regarding Counselor Hook's question. There's more opportunities than just those 4 a month for Open Swim for families, correct? Okay, got it. Thank you.
The mom can come in for the classes, they can bring the children to the classes. There is no age limit for water movement. We're gonna have lanes open for people who just wanna come and swim a lap and leave. We're gonna try to make sure there's room, even if there's aquatic class going down on. I've had a couple of members of the community call me and say, I'm trying to prepare for a triathlon leave. I said, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So Emily and I are working on how to make sure there's always a lane open for anyone who just wants to come in and do a workout and on their own and leave. No, and we don't have an age limit for any of our aquatic classes for them to come in. And I think a family member probably doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to come with their kids. I mean, you don't have to, it's just a family, if that helps.
I have another question on that. I'm wondering if there's a way we can do
I finally have a
an
question.
addition on the family. Like, I understand you don't want people to abuse the system and start signing up a bunch of adults as if they're part of their family, and all of a sudden you've got like 5 adults on one family thing. Like, I get that. I'm thinking back to like my Gilbert House membership where I can add children at a flat rate, but they're still only allowing 2 adults per family. And so like you can have your rate be, this whatever it is that it comes out to be for the family. But if you have other children that are a part of your household, you can add them at a certain rate to that monthly amount. And so I'm wondering if that's an option that we could look at. That way that covers, your average of 4 in a family that we see a lot, but also a fair price to add the other children that are living in the household.
Yeah, I would maybe just suggest removing the cap and saying a limit of 2 adults, and that's it. And not having a limit on children.
I think you want to
You
name
said
the
that,
children. You want
leave
named
the
children.
rate, kind of say 2 adults plus children.
That was my idea, yes.
So I'm also thinking about my OMSI membership. And they like you to name the children with these things. So that way you're not taking the whole neighborhood as well. And
Right.
I think, paying for the extra kids is not a bad thing if it's a reasonable amount. Like, I'm thinking $10 for a kid. You got to provide the name of what the kid's name is. That way you're not just bringing in everybody on your family membership.
I like
Okay,
it.
So we're gonna do 2 adults and however many children they have, and they're gonna list their children so that the family card is literally for their family. And am I adjusting the rate? Are we adjusting the rate as well?
Mr. Mayor, I feel like if we agree on these rates, then the family membership, I'm okay with staying the same. What I was hearing from the conversation, Susanna, was 2 adults. Was it 4? So 2 adults, 2 kids, and then any extra kids would be extra, or
Flat rate.
a flat rate of $10 per kid? Or maybe we even, do we do like 2 adults and 4 kids? And then any extra child in your household?
I think that's fair. Like 2 adults, up to 4 kids, any extra child after that is an extra amount, because that's going to take more services and,
Yeah, but in your household, correct? Yes.
I think they have to just be named with the membership, because again, you want
Okay, I
to
get you.
control it.
Named within, okay, named, I gotcha.
Real quick, this
If 1 and under, it's free regardless, if that helps as well.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty.
Yeah,
I did
go
have a
ahead.
question for Susanna.
Counselor?
As far as naming the kids and the adults on these memberships, is that data that we can obtain at getting a membership and then track and make sure that we're keeping patrons accountable to that information? Or is that not something staff's able to do? I just was curious if that's manageable.
From what I've been doing in my research with the program that we use, yes, I can list them all and then enter them. So then we know exactly who was there and how many.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I do believe we can do that.
Thank you.
And then it'll let me also see how many really family sizes. Prior to that, that data wasn't in there. It was just family and nothing else. So I didn't really know how many members and any of that stuff. But going forward, since we have to start over and rebuild everyone's accounts, I'll be able to do that and list them.
Okay, that's what I suspected. So I'm glad you actually clarified that too. Thank you.
Susanna, this is me. This is a simple one. I can't get involved in all these complex numbers. If I buy a punch card for 10 visits, as an ancient person, it costs me 3.5 a visit, right? 10 into 35.
Yes,
That sound right?
yes.
That's pretty basic. Okay,
Then, yeah.
okay.
And if you just want, and we reduced it to 10 instead of 20, because everybody else was doing 10 and 10
No,
sounds
that's fine.
easier.
Yeah, no,
So
that's
if you did a
fine.
punch
Okay.
card,
Yeah, I'm good.
and then a little bit of a discount by putting that together.
All right.
That way.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Counselor.
Oh, it's
Oh, Keith?
So, I mean, I think one of the things we've been talking about, just to clarify for everyone who doesn't know, one of the feedback we had heard from the community was wanting more drop-in times for families and more just open swim. So what we've been talking about today, and in one of the challenges I know Susanna's been working through, is to try to figure out how to sort of make this program work, but is to move a majority of the Saturday time to just a natural open swim, picking the time when kids would naturally be out of school, a time when parents may be looking for something to do with their kids. So we'll see how that goes. And this is, working with these drop-ins and all that, was trying to figure out a way to make it as convenient for the people who may not be regular users of the pool, but just wanted the activities for young kids, that would do that. And just to have more of that open swim where the slide's open and the swing is open and some of the fun kid activities. So, I mean, we're playing on Mondays, but this is one of the questions with drop-ins was, we initially had drop-ins taken off, and we thought, well, if we're trying to do more open swim, not the normal patrons of the pool per se, but just those occasional users of the community, this would be the process we do. I do feel comfortable that, like Susanna said, one of the things we're hoping to get is good information and data so we can make better decisions going forward. But we do recognize that this will be a change with the drop-ins, so we'll have to, build that up, make sure the community knows, and just see how that goes. Or maybe there's a time frame that's better. Maybe the winter time is better, maybe the summertime is better. So we're interested in and sort of excited to see what happens when we have just truly more of an open swim. Bring your kids down and have fun.
Mayor Porter.
Yes, go ahead.
So I feel like part of why I ran for council and why I feel like my voice is important on here is because I am a single mom with 3 kids. I don't see any low income rates. Being a mom that does like to do memberships, and I personally would love to support the pool with a membership, I can tell you, even as a mom that I feel pretty secure financially, I would never pay this rate. I would literally never even consider paying $176 per month for my family to go to a pool. It's like $176 for a year membership to OMSI, and I understand that's a little bit different. Same with the zoo. Family rates need to be reasonable so the family wants to come, so they want to spend their money right here in Staten and maybe forego that zoo membership and instead go, I actually think that there's a lot of value in our community pool and I want to pay that rate. I'm not saying it should stay $55. I think that's ridiculously cheap. I would be willing to pay a lot more than that. $176 is just too high. I think we're going to have outraged community members, literally outraged on social media about this. Why did I support that levy? We'll never find support again for it, guys. I'm telling you, this is too much.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Oh, Counselor?
this is Counselor
go
Ward.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for Susanna. I have 2 questions, two questions. One for Susanna and then one for Counselor Hook, so bear with me. So the pool rentals, can you give us an idea of, so 2 lifeguards required, 3 lifeguards required, so like up to how many people does this service when you're doing the pool rentals?
The current rate is 1 guard to 25 swimmers.
Okay.
So it just depends how big your party is. And I saw in there, we had a variety of different pool size parties that people rented it for.
Okay, thank you. And then, Counselor Hook, so the youth rate, because, okay, so with the monthly membership, you can decide how many times you're gonna go to make that worth it. And so in my mind, I would think, okay, if I'm gonna go swimming by myself, I'm gonna go swim laps, I'm gonna go take a class, I'm gonna take my kids to a class, and then we're gonna do some open swims, is it worth it for me to get this monthly membership? And then, or would it be more feasible for me to do the drop-in rate instead? So I guess, and I don't have the answer for that. I'm just saying, like, are you thinking about it in terms of that?
So I'm thinking about habits that we want to build with our community members. We want them to come to our pool. We want them to pay money every single month we can count on. If we can get them to sign up for this monthly membership, it's going to be more beneficial to the pool because we know that that money is coming in every single month. Whereas as a single mom with 3 kids, and a lot of my friends are the same, whether they're married or single, they're just really, you're busy. And when you have that drop in, it's out of sight, out of mind. When you're getting that thing taken from your account every single month, it's that reminder of, oh yeah, I need to be using that. Oh, I need to be using that. And you don't really want to cancel it because you have already signed up for it. People hate canceling things. That's extra work. So finding a happy medium, maybe adding value to this family membership is something like, you get a certain amount of, swim lessons or something that comes with that. Like, with your family membership, you get 2 months of swim lessons for up to this many kids. I don't know what the exact answer is, but finding a way to add value, advertise that, and make it worth it for the families, because 176 is just like, whoa, I look at that number and I'm like, never would I. And then, when you're looking at swim lessons, you go only up to 3 swimmers. Some of these families, we have a lot of families that have a lot of kids. And what happens when there's 4 swimmers? Do we add another $36 because that's where the break is? But where's the note there that says additional swimmers at this rate? Because you're basically telling the families with 4 kids, we're not going to serve you because now we're just going to charge you the full 45 for all your extra kids. So just knowing where that break is, knowing that it's inclusive, that there isn't a cap on it, that everyone can feel welcome no matter what their family size is, no matter what their budget is. I'd really like to see some affordable, low income rates for people that can prove with a utility bill or a social service of some kind that they're, whether it's their Oregon Health Plan card or their SNAP card, show that they are low income and can get some type of a discount and still enjoy the community pool at a discounted rate. Because it is their community pool too. It's something to consider. I have to advocate for it. I think 176 literally is too high. I cannot vote for that. And that's just where I'm at.
Well, just put a simple thing in there, Counselor, and Susanna, just put a real simple thing, swim lessons included.
Mr. Mayor?
No numbers, just, that's a family rate, swim lessons included.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I had another suggestion. So if you buy the family pass, then you could get a discount on your swim lessons?
No, just throw them in.
I would argue that our swim lessons are probably our biggest, are probably where we make the most money. So I don't necessarily, but I think that buying the family pass and then getting a discount on them, and then, oh my gosh, okay. So for the swim lessons, instead of saying 1 swimmer at this and then 2 swimmers, it could be first swimmer is 45 and any additional swimmers are at a discounted rate. So then we don't have to cut it off at, or keep it this way and then say additional swimmers are X. But I would agree having that on there.
So I did not see as many family memberships as I do seniors, first off. I don't see a lot of families buying memberships. What I saw families doing was getting swimming lessons. I didn't see in there many families past 3. And that's probably why there was only 3 originally in the structure. I think there was an additional $10 if there was more than 3. So I didn't see that. I think our biggest weight really is in the memberships is the seniors and the swimming lessons. From what I could see in there.
Wouldn't it be nice to change that though, because we're promoting it as a family community pool? And I like the idea that the mayor put out there. I also agree with Councilor Ort that it probably is, our moneymaker, our lessons. But is there value in saying that, you still have to sign up like everybody else. You still got to get on those waiting lists like everybody else. But if you have a family membership, maybe you get a certain amount of months or a certain amount of like passes for swim lessons. Like if you've got, I don't know, maybe the number is 8. Then you get 8 months of one lesson. However you divvy that out between your kids is your thing. But you get 8 basically spots that you get for that whole, year if you continue to go for the year. Maybe it's just 1 per month. I don't know what that would look like, but having some type of value add to that to get people onto that recurring monthly family rate where they're going, oh, I can do swim lessons and we can enjoy the pool on the weekends. I think it's going to end up bringing in more money overall if the families can see the value in it and kind of like shift over to that monthly recurring rate. I don't know that that's at $176, but I would love for you guys to think more outside the box. If our clientele is seniors, maybe we are tapping out that growth opportunity. Maybe we need to start a little lower on the families, start promoting it for families so we can bring in more people and getting those habits formed. Because I would love to be able to bring my own kids, and I know that there's a lot of families that would love to. There's a lot of doors that, had, tricycles and like play structures in their backyard when I was hanging the door knocker things. You could tell families lived there. And I think that we had a lot of families that were supporting the levy because they realized, oh, I should have been using the pool more. I should have been going to it. I know that's how I felt because I'm like, oh, wow, I like the option of having it, but maybe I wasn't supporting it enough. So we have this momentum that we can build off of, but it has to be a reasonable thing that families are going to go, yep, I'm going to pay for that instead of these things. I'm going to support my local community versus going up to Portland or Salem.
One
Mr.
other possibility here, something else we lose track of or lose sight of. When that thing was built, the original purpose of it was to promote water safety. And so I'm willing to stick extra money into that to make swim lessons as affordable as possible.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. I'd actually be
Yes.
in favor of that proposal of including those as part of this monthly rate. And I think that might incentivize a lot of families to get on board with this. Now, I hear Councilor Hook's point of view here that that's a lot of money to ask for, your family or any other family in our community, really. So maybe if we could just start talking about what rate we find reasonable and including swimming lessons, because I think that's going to incentivize the monthly membership that we're all looking for here.
So if you're including swimming lessons, if we're talking about, doesn't matter how many kids you have, you still have to sign up for them. You're still in the same pool as everybody else of, whatever, I think is the first Monday, you got to get on there and sign up for them. So you're still having to be competitive. But if you are going to throw in the swim lessons, $176 doesn't sound so crazy to a family of 5 at all. And maybe they only do it for the swim lessons and they never come for anything else. But they're religious about signing their kids up for swim lessons. Kids only need swim lessons for a certain amount. Pretty soon, they don't need swim lessons anymore. And now you're just collecting $176 every month until they remember to cancel it. Or they remember to come in on those Saturdays for the family fun day. And with the right social media approach, I really think that that is an excellent idea. I don't know what the loss will be on that. I'm not a huge numbers person, but I am a person that likes a good value as a mom that is single with 3 children. And when you're throwing in the swim lessons, I'm like, cool, sounds reasonable for me. I'm mentally telling myself I'm going to cancel. I know by habit that's not what I do.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Susanna, are we still going to continue the passes at the library that can be checked out? Can you remind me what those You know what I'm talking about? Jana will know. So we,
Jana might be able to hop on. Yeah, she'll hop on and be able to tell us.
is she coming on? Because those were the ones where you could check it out for like the day or the weekend, and then you could go to the pool for essentially free up to so many people.
So it's just, we just only had one pass, Jordan, but we haven't talked about it since we've been doing this stuff. So I don't know the answer for you, but we did in the past offer a cultural pass for the pool that would get, I don't know the exact number of swimmers in, but it's basically a family. They could check it out and then use it at the pool.
I would love to see that as an option, and maybe we could do more than one and talk about that as a kind of a compromise.
I love
per
that
se.
idea. A few more, and maybe a sign in the lobby of the pool. Post on Facebook saying, please remember that there are this many passes, so that the pool is affordable for everybody.
I'm still, okay, okay, I'm verbally processing here.
While you're thinking, each page,
Go ahead, Susanna.
is-
You're cutting out on us a little bit.
unless she has her thought. Am I? Oh,
You're kind of cutting out there, so I'm not sure what you said.
I have a booster in my office for internet. I have a booster in my office. There must be something going. There's no router to not have this issue. I have a little bit of hesitancy for throwing swim lessons in with a membership, because that may result in parents filling up slots and then not following through. And then the people who are just paying for swimming lessons won't get them. And we only do 2-week blocks at random times. You'd be better off, my suggestion is, because 2 adults is $120, $60 each. You'd be better off to have the kids free in the membership at this point and see what it looks like. And leave the swimming lessons alone, is a suggestion, until we get a chance to see what this actually will do going forward. Just a thought.
That's actually a very interesting proposal there, where it's like basically you pay for 2 adults. Well, I don't know how that works equity-wise.
Just try it.
Yeah, that maybe
See how many
maybe it's still
lifeguards
called
are coming.
family, but it's at the rate of like 2 adults or something. And the kids are free then. I don't really know what.
I think that's would be what we would need to do. Just get rid of the 2 adults and just make it a family plan at 120.
Yeah, and I think that 120 is a lot more like digestible too. And then if that ends up, when you get data and back and you start going, okay, is this working for the pool? Do we have a lot more family members coming? Do we need to increase these a little bit more and figure out how to add value to it? Like maybe that's a conversation for later. But I can tell you 120 is way more digestible as a family rate than 176. I don't know what it is about that number that jumps at me and just bites, but it's 120 is a lot better. And just, yeah, the family rate doesn't matter how many kids, but they need to be named. I think everyone on the membership just needs to be named.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, 176 is more than any utility bill that anybody pays for the most part, unless they're using their AC at 60 every day. So I think 120, you're going to definitely promote them keeping those memberships longer term. 176, they might get in there during the summer months and then get out. just depending on when they're able to fully utilize it. So I think we're on the right track there. I think at 120 with a named set of children was probably the sweet spot.
Is that, swim lessons, is that for so much for a set, or is it like 10 of them, or 6, or?
It's 2 weeks, 3 to 5 days, it's at a half an hour each. So it's 2 weeks worth of swimming lessons.
2 weeks worth,
And depending on their age,
or 3 weeks?
it could be 30-minute or hour class for those swim lessons.
So 2 weeks, 6 or 8 of them, of these 30-minute lessons?
Yeah, 8 to 10 classes.
8 to 10, okay. All right, okay.
Susanna? So you're doing swim lessons like every day for 2 weeks?
I think that the schedule was Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday. I can't, so I'm saying it's 8 to 10. And then they were 2 weeks long. I know that much.
Okay.
And then we plan to put them throughout the year instead of just during seasons, as long as it doesn't clash with the swim team.
Okay. Because we were
Because
doing we were doing 2 a week for 4 weeks previously.
I think that's a big burden to put on parents to sign up every 2 weeks.
Well, I'm just thinking taking my kids to the pool every day for 2 weeks is making me want to. Yeah,
much.
And being value-based, I'm making it every day.
I saw on the website of other cities, they just did it in that. But if we were doing 2 a week for the time to still do the same 8 to 10 classes over the time frame, that works too. So that might be easier scheduling wise.
I would prefer that as a parent.
Schedule. I'm still playing with
I know you
schedule.
are. I
We
appreciate.
have
I appreciate you.
Yes, I do appreciate your patience with with all the feedback. It's scheduling is hard. Fee schedules are hard. I appreciate all the work that you've put into this and even coming up with the creative solutions for it. It is very much appreciated. I don't want you to think I'm sitting here going, what? I'm just saying my opinion as a parent, my perspective, because I want this to be successful. And
Exactly.
I hope to see that these non-resident fees, I know we need to charge more to non-residents, but just making sure that they're really in line so that we're, especially with the families, because we really do want people to come in and use our pool, because that means they're also going to use a lot of other things in town, which promotes, our businesses around. And a lot of the kids, they may not live in town, but they're going to our schools. And I feel like, with all that's happened, like with the wildfires and everything, we're just kind of one bigger, greater community. And I would like to see as much as we can without putting us too far into the hole or anything financially, trying to welcome a lot of them, letting them know that Staten is a hub, is their home, because that is basically what we are for them, for the San Am Canyon and some of the other cities around us.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, please.
thank you. Susanna, how are the non-resident fees, are they based on like a percentage of the resident fees, or I'm just thinking of how we come up with if we're going to reduce the resident families to 120, then how are we going to reduce the non-resident families as well? And then how do we do that? If we're going to.
35% is the difference between the two. So
Okay.
if the residence is 120, then the non-residents will just be 35% higher.
Okay,
And I did that all the way down. And then when I
Perfect.
looked at the other cities, they vary from anywhere from 29 to 35% difference between resident and non-resident. And one actually, and so we just decided that 35% would probably be good. So that's all we would do, is adjust it from there.
cool. And then follow up to that, so the seasonal monthly membership for 3 months, that just kind of skews those numbers as well for the family rates. Counselors, do you have an opinion on that?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I was looking at the annuals crossed out at the bottom, sorry.
No, it's okay. So there's a seasonal monthly membership where you can pay 3 months at a time. And so our monthly membership reduction, that would probably mess with those numbers too.
Yeah, I would just like to see a consistent percentage difference for pretty much everything, and, rounding it to that 25 cents or 50 cents, whatever it is that makes it look, or on the dollar, whatever it is. I'm seeing that there's we have 50, 25,
Difference.
75. So, but just mostly having it be consistent regardless. So if you're getting a monthly adult membership and you decide to get a seasonal monthly or a 3-month pass, that you're getting the same percentage break or very close to the same percentage break as what the youth would be getting or the seniors or the family are getting. So there's not a huge jump. Not many
That's
people
right.
look at that, but some people do.
That's what I did when I built it, is I just used a formula for the differences. And then looked at the differences on the other cities for what their difference is and kind of what their break was. And I just had a formula and followed it for the same thing. So I could adjust the 3-month membership the same way and just change the numbers and use the same formula that I used.
Can I ask
So
what cities you looked at? Because I'm curious on that.
I looked at Sweet Home, I looked at Turner, I looked at Jefferson, I looked at Albany, I looked at Lebanon. Let me see.
Perfect, thank you. That's great. Nope,
Okay.
that's great.
Got enough?
Just doing my due diligence. Perfect
No,
cities
you're
to look
fine.
at. Thank you.
Okay.
No, I got as many as I could get my hands on. Some of them, like, I think it was Turner only has an outdoor pool, but they still had swim rates and lessons. I talked to the Sweet Home manager directly. I said, wow, you guys have very simple rates. He goes, yeah, it's way too time consuming on staff to spend this much effort on dealing with so many prices and to keep staff time down and more focused at the pool. They took theirs down really simple, which is why I took out a bunch of stuff out of ours. I thought, oh, that makes perfect sense. I don't want staff time away from the pool so that they're swimming. I mean, we changed the staffing to keep the overhead down by doing a pool supervisor and then having me as a pool manager. And then changing those responsibilities so we reduce the cost. And if they're not spending a lot of time, or even the pool supervisor is not spending a lot of admin hours, and spend more training the lifeguards and the aquatic instructors and actually out there with the community at the pool would be better in the long run. So that's another reason why I took out stuff and got rid of a bunch of categories and just made it simple.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
Yes, Susanna, this is kind of a general question since you mentioned it. I was just kind of curious if these other pools are being supported by levies from their communities or surrounding districts or anything like that.
Not that I saw. Not that I saw. I know Sweet Home doesn't because I know what their levies are just because I happen to live here. But I didn't look at the other ones to see if they had levies. I didn't go to their city budgets and get that picky.
Thank you.
I could pool managers or supervisors and ask what they were doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Counselor, go
So
ahead.
question for the council then, is that something that we want to take into consideration with the fees? And I know, Susanna, you did a lot of work on these, but is that something that, I don't know, it's hard to say because we're opening up the pool after it being closed for so long, but also we did pass our levy, so how do we balance the two to make sure that, I understand keeping rates in line with what is, happening in the overall communities, but also if we're supporting our pool with tax dollars as well, how do we see that in our fees?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. Just to your point real quick, Councilor Ort, I would say that when we're comparing these other rates, we probably should be at the low end of this since we're being subsidized by the community and the taxpayers, and that's just my personal opinion as this individual councilor.
I would agree with that.
I would agree with that as well. And I feel like this conversation has been so robust, and I personally would like to look at this again myself, and just kind of comb over like what, thinking about the levy, thinking about, I would just like, I personally would like to bring this back. I don't know if we can.
So we can bring it back. The issue is we're going to bring it back before we can open the pool. So
I'm willing to meet again before.
we might be
like a
looking at like a
special
special, special call.
Yeah, that's what.
When are we looking at having the pool open?
Well, right now, that's what we're working on, is staffing levels is really what the challenge we're facing now. And so, Susanna, do you want to talk about kind of where we're at in that process of staffing levels and opening up? And we've even talked about just doing more of a soft opening, maybe not with the robust hours. So, Susanna, I'll turn it over to you with that.
So we are just finishing up the last bit of maintenance that we need to do to be ready to open. We're getting that done this week. We have a small number of applicants for lifeguards and instructors at this point, and our new pool supervisor is reaching out to try to get some of her contacts to see if she can increase some applications. I've talked to the swim team coaches and asked for them as well to talk to their swim members if any of them are interested to try to generate some more applications. So we're working on that. One of the options we have, because it really is now down to staffing, because like I said, the pool maintenance should be finished up by the end of this week and be ready to go, is opening the pool only in the afternoons for the amount of staff that we have. It would be small hours, but at least we could get it open and have something going forward until we could get fully staffed, is one of the options that I'm looking at this point if we don't get more applications.
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Might not be a good idea. I'm not going to claim that it is one. What if for like the first opening month, there's like a special buy a monthly membership or a punch card and it's only like $20? Like just to get people, like this is what our opening rate is. We're working out a fee schedule, but $20 for anybody, you get a 10 visit punch card or something as like a promotion to get people into the pool, see what's changed. It sort of then limits, how many visits people can actually come. But I don't know, it's a good like value, and then we can have a tiny bit more time to work out some of the details and still gets the pool open.
Be more inclined to that we're only doing daily rates and I wouldn't do anything else. You don't want to devalue our pool by reducing prices too low. That's not wise either. And if we are stuck to limited hours and only afternoons, it would make most logical sense to just, here's the daily rates, and that's all we're going to charge until we're fully staffed and fully running at the 57 hours a week that I'm working with the schedule at this point.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, yeah,
I-
go Go ahead.
I'd be in favor of doing so what the rates are now, the $5 and the $3. So $5 for adult, $3 for youth under 18 and our senior and disabled populations, just doing that until we figure out the fee schedule. And I just wanted to say that I know there's a lot of seniors in our community that use or have used our pool in the past for exercise and mobility and keeping up. There's so many things that people can do in the water that they can't do on land. And the impact of the pool closing the day that it closed was not lost on me when I went there. And so I just want to make sure that if we are opening for, I know that we want a family pool, but our seniors are part of that community as well. And so I want to make sure that if we're doing afternoon hours only, that there is time structured for them as well, and not just for families with kids.
Well, Susanna, Hank again, you can hear both voices here of we need to get this thing open. At the same time, we need to chew around in this schedule a little more, but there isn't so much time to have more workshops, work sessions, whatever. We need to find, you said it the best, I think, let's find maybe a temporary schedule, get the thing open, get people back in there, and then we can sit and hammer out this fee schedule over the next few weeks. My thought.
Yeah,
Boom.
Mr. Mayor,
issue with that. And then also on the resident rates, just so you guys remember that we've done a 10% increase every year. And there's a mixture of 10 to 15% increase on the regular resident rates. So I did not make big changes to them per se compared to what they were last year. I didn't, so just so you know that. Because my focus was to keep that low, knowing that they voted for the levy, and then adjust accordingly to the non-residents who aren't paying in the levy. And that's why there's a bigger percentage difference that you did not see in the prior rates. There was a very small difference between the two. So that's why it split and kept that low. Just so you know, kind of the other piece of when I was structuring this.
it's taking my breath away a little bit that there's been a 10% increase every year to the rates. Is that what I just heard?
Yes, yes. Now, I have to keep
That's
up
shocking.
cost of
I
staff.
don't personally like that. I think that transparency is key. And for the non-resident fees, I think it's really important that when we do any type of social media, any type of paperwork, that we are really clear that because you don't pay into this levy that supports the pool, this is why your rates are more, because a lot of people said, we'd be willing to pay more if it meant that the pool was open. I heard that over and over and over, that they wish they could have voted, that they wish they could support. So just being really transparent about that, I think will be really important. And when we're throwing out this stuff about, like a promotion month, like a let's just get a temporary rate, that we really mark it up as this is a promotion so that people don't think these are the permanent rates. Otherwise, we're going to have uprising of why is it so expensive? And if we're going to do some type of former rates and then jump it the very next month, we need to be careful to say this is a promotional rate because it's been closed for so long. We just want as many people as we can to enjoy the pool. And I support Councilor Ort with what she said about making sure that there is some time for the seniors to get back into without all the families there splashing around. If there's any way that we can set aside an hour or something a few days a week where for that first month, that would be great.
Takes me an hour to get into the thing, but that's all right.
So if I'm hearing, where we're at now is, in council, let me know if you disagree, but what we should do is just for now, pass the daily rate and then come back with, the more permanent rates as we have time to work through these. But just to get those set so we can move forward, is that a fair assessment of where we're at right now? And
Yeah.
then we'll schedule a time to come back with the feedback from tonight with those rates on a more permanent. Does that sound like the appropriate course of action?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. I, for one, would say yes to Keith's question.
Yes. Same here.
I think yes, as long as we weren't planning to do any swim lessons that first month anyway.
Okay.
I wouldn't say necessarily a month. I think what we're saying at this point is for now, just let's get a rate so that people can use it on a daily basis. And then we'll work on getting staffing levels up and also to get these rates solved and figured out.
I'm good with that, but I don't get to vote.
Yeah, I'm on board with that too. Let's get that
Okay.
done so we can get the thing open.
Do we need formal action on that, or can we just?
Yeah, I would say go ahead and take formal action, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and someone like to offer a motion to that effect? And if we need to,
Miss Mayor Porter, I'd like to make a motion that we set the daily rates at 5% above of the former rates that we had of the $5, $3, and $14 until we come back as council.
okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Was that a second?
No,
Oh.
I'd like her to repeat it.
Yes, me also.
I would like to move that we set the daily rates at no more than 5% above what we had before for the daily rates at $5, $3, and $14 that are listed out here.
Where am I seeing these? Monthly, seasonal, swim, drop in.
It's the drop-in rates.
Is that?
Mr. Mayor,
The
may I
daily
ask?
is that drop-in rate, okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask
Yes.
a clarifying question?
Yes,
Yeah, so Councilor Hook, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're moving that adult drop-in rates would be $5.50, youth would be $3.30, and then the family drop-in rate would then be $14.70. Do I have that right?
No, not to exceed the 5% increase.
oh yeah, let's put some hard numbers on it, please.
Yeah.
5.
I have a quick question, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, Ben, yes.
Question.
Counselor?
This is first, maybe for Susanna. Prior to the previous rates, when was the last time we raised rates?
July of the prior year,
And it was, we raised, that prior year, we raised 10%,
correct.
or
I-
rounded off.
Folks, I'm going to
Rounding
need,
it out to get rid of points, exactly, to be quarters.
I would actually suggest we just keep the previous rates.
We have a,
We-
we have a motion on the,
I'm going to need a second on that motion, or
Motion
it would
dies.
die and we'd start over. But
Mr. Mayor, I rescind my
Yes.
motion.
you rescind the motion? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to adopt the prior daily rates for the meantime.
Seconded. This is Councilor Patty.
So that's of what? 5, 6, and
5, 3, and 14.
5, 3, and 14. Okay. 5, 3, and 14. Everyone understand that? Previous daily rates, 5,
Yeah,
3, and
just
14.
Getting rid of the 10% increase.
Yeah.
are we,
5, 3, and 14. Now,
are we in discussion right now?
and there's a second, so that motion's live. Is that a temporary rate for a period, specific period of time, Ben?
No, I think for, the citizens of the city
Okay,
passed a pretty big increase in the levy that they're paying, and I think they need to be rewarded some
Well-
for that, and have us offset that without increasing their rates, based on specifically because we already raised them
yeah.
10% the prior year, which is already a
Okay.
pretty decent bump, so.
Yeah, that's my mistake. That motion
Like
should
to see them
stand,
stay.
I'm sorry, that motion should stand on its own, so let's go with it. Discussion, please?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say that I absolutely agree with Councilor McDonald, and especially with the reasoning of they had been raised prior, and with the passing of the levy, I think that is fair, and if we need to increase in the future, we can look at it in the future. But for those drop-in rates, both resident fees and non-resident fees, I'd like to see them stay the same permanently for this year.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
So I tend to agree and lean that way, but just as a devil's advocate to think about, and if they need to be raised later, but, the cost of the expenses of the pool, including staffing, continue to go up. So that's something that we need to take into consideration when we're trying to operate the pool and not have it come back. Something Susanna mentioned in here is to make sure that we're not subsidizing the pool also with our general fund dollars. So just something to take into consideration. I'm also of the opinion, maybe we keep it this way for this year as a thank you
there you
for these just specifically, and then we can come back with the others.
go. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty.
Yes, other discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just the last item I have here, I promise. I would just prefer to see this as more of an incremental approach than some of the percentages that have been mentioned and that we've passed. So I'm happy kind of bringing this down a little bit, especially since we've, the community has made the choice to, subsidize the pool, whereas other pools, they don't have that. But I think that that's fair, and I support that motion.
Okay, any other discussion?
Counselor Mullen, you've been real quiet over there.
Feeling well.
Oh, I apologize.
Okay. Chris, are you happy with the way this has gone?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Everything's
Good, thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else, Alyssa, would you go ahead and poll the council, please?
Sure. Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Mullen.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Good, and we've got more rates to do tonight, folks.
Mayor Porter, I just have one question.
Go ahead.
Keith, do you feel that staff feel like they have enough direction in kind of where to go next, that we didn't leave them hanging too much?
I think so. Susanna, are you comfortable with where we're at right now?
Yeah, we're leaving the daily rates as is for residents and non-residents, and then looking at bringing them back, focusing on adjusting family, but leaving the resident and non-resident gap between going forward for the rest of the rates, correct?
Correct, exactly.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so are we good there? Can we go on? Resolution number 1030, establishing rates for solid waste management in the city of Staten as requested by United Disposal Services, doing business as Republic Services of Marion County. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is consideration of Resolution 1030, invoking a rate increase of 6.5% for solid waste management for the franchise of Republic Services of Marion County. So just a little background, on April 19th, Republic Services came and gave a presentation to the council, at which point they requested a 10.3% rate increase for the city of Staten. We've had several subsequent meetings to discuss this. On May 17th, we had an overall meeting just talking about the background and the history of the solid waste franchise agreement in the city of Stayton. We brought that back forward. There were some questions for Republic Services where we met again on July 19th. Republic Services did a presentation and the discussion that brought forward this resolution. So just want to point out in the packet, there is a requirement from State Municipal Code 4.08030, which goes into 10 items that are to be considered when you're looking at a rate increase. So I don't plan on reading those right now, but those have been presented both in this memo and in prior memos as well. During the discussion on July 19th, the City Council asked that the City Attorney be available. Mark Wolf is the representative for LGLG that handles franchise agreements. He was unable to make tonight's meeting, so our regular City Attorney, Ross Williamson, is here from LGLG to answer any questions. Staff did work with our attorney to come up with this resolution, and the information you see is part of the packet. Alyssa also helped with this, so I will bring her on if questions are needed. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, go ahead, please.
I have a question about,
Busy reading.
so either for you, Keith, or for Ross, the, second item on the resolution talking about the increasing the rate based upon the consumer price index. Can we just get an idea of what that, and maybe this is a question for Republic Services, what that looks like? Because
So
we're talking about doing, we're talking about doing a 6% increase, 6.5, excuse
Yeah,
me.
Resolution says, yeah, 6.5.
6.5, so what is it normally?
So during the discussion in July 19th, one of the things that was brought up was the consideration of including a CPI going forward with the Republic Services rate. So what was brought forward, you're looking at here, is the initial increase being effective September 1st of 2021, the 6.5 that the council discussed last time. And then what we have established starting beginning July 1st, 2023, is to base it off the CPI-U, which is there are different indexes that are used to determine CPIs based off of regions. So this was one that was recommended by the city attorney. So this is one we went with. There are different ones and different models to use. It just depends on what you're trying to do. So the CPI-U was a recommendation, and that's what's in there. So basically what that means is that it looks at that index, and then the rates would go up automatically based off whatever that rate index would be in a given year.
That takes them off the hook of requesting the big formal request for rate increases every 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and it lets us predict what kind of money we're talking about.
This would be something that would come forward to the council every year to still approve, but yes, the idea behind anytime you set your rates, and we've done this with some of our fees, is if you set the rates and then set it with the consumer price index, in theory, that should account for the cost of business going up and allow for the margins to remain the same and avoid the situation of waiting 4 or 5 years and then having what looks like a pretty shocking type increase. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, go ahead.
So you, Keith, you gave a good explanation of what the CPI is and why we use it, but are we talking, like every year, is it going to go up approximately like 2%? Are we looking at 18%? Or that's just, I'm just trying to grasp, like, obviously it still says that we reserve, the right with council approval and everything, but what is the next, just a range idea? We're talking like in your mind, when you're like, okay, how much is this going to cost? Is it going to be $5? Is it going to be $500? So we're talking like,
Yeah, I mean,
2% or-
yeah. I am old enough, but not old enough to remember the hyperinflation of the 1970s, and maybe the mayor, not to put him on the spot, can talk about that. But when inflationary rates would hit 15 to 17%, where home mortgages would be at 20% interest rates.
Yeah.
So that was in the late 70s, that was at the time frame. We've had some periods here recently where the inflationary rate has been 0 or close to that. One of the things we saw late this year as part of our CPI that we looked at for COLA increases for our employees, we saw a big jump late this year as, higher inflationary rates. We've seen the inflationary rates come back down. I would say recently, 0 to 5, but of course, 0 to 5% inflationary rates. But I would say there's always an uncertainty on going forward of something happening to cause, hyperinflation. I think the United States federal government has worked hard to try to keep inflationary rates at a minimum, but I think there's always some uncertainty with that going forward.
Sure. Okay.
Mayor Porter.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Something that I'm curious about, Keith, that maybe you may have insight on, because it's sort of foreign to me, but we had public comment on, I think, the last meeting where I wasn't really clear what the individual was talking about at first. So after the meeting, I went and I looked up an article, and apparently I think it's like the incinerator or something in Marion County has gone private instead of working with Marion County, and we don't know how those rates are going to affect our garbage in the future. So what I don't want to see is we improve a rate, and then all of a sudden they're coming back saying, now we need to increase it because this happened, and now we know how it's going to impact us. How can we protect ourselves from something like that? Because that's heavily going to influence, I think, because it's the such other factors as council deems relevant. That's going to heavily impact my vote, knowing that could be around the corner, that this was a slide in before, and now we're going to get another thing where China changed everything, and we had to have increase, and now we're going to have more increase again because of this burner. Do you have any insight on that?
I know this was an issue that the county has been working on, and there's been some challenges. I think where tipping fees are, I worked in a city prior that actually had a municipal facility or a regional facility for municipal, solid waste to come to, right? So finding locations and the tipping fees that go with that, or the burner fees in this case in Marion County, are one of the challenges. The county has had some challenges, has recently gone to privatization, the idea being that can maybe be more efficient than the government entities have been or the partnership has been. I don't have any real insight other than an uncertainty that you're bringing up at this point of what is that going to mean long-term. And I just don't know at this point, what that would mean long-term in terms of that. And I think there is some concern at one point, there could be a change in this, but there was a concern that the approval of the burner going forward may be an ongoing issue too, worried about the impacts of the pollutants, if you will, that are going up in the air. There's arguments other ways that it's actually less pollutants than going into the ground. That's a whole philosophical debate I'm not necessarily wanting to be part of, but I think that's one of the issues. There was concerns at one point from the county, and I haven't heard any differently. I could be wrong at this point with my information, but I think there is concerns that the burner may go away, which could mean that we are looking for locations to haul, and the hauling could increase that as well. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty with that, but I'm sorry I don't have any insight on what to expect.
Thank you. Anyway, I knew if someone did, probably would be you, so.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty.
Go ahead.
I don't know if this is a good question for Ross or for you, Keith, but do we have the ability to put a cap on the 6.5% by chance? Is that something we have the ability to do?
Just to clarify, a cap in.
Or I'm sorry, the CPI, not the 6.5. I apologize.
Yeah, I think you could put some sort of on there, and Ross can obviously hop on here and disagree. What we do with our ASME and our SPOA, generally speaking, is to set a range that we're okay with. I think what I would say initially with the draft of this is that it still requires approval from the council every year. So if there was some sort of significant inflationary type thing that conversations could have, your public services could explain, why the need was still there. To do that. So I think that's why the language was written in such a way, just to have some flexibility. But I think you have the right to say no more than this if you wanted to, or to just put a range in there.
No, I don't. Okay, thank you.
See if Ross was going to hop on, but I think he must think I answered okay. All right. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor
Appreciate it.
Porter. Mayor Porter.
Oh, yes, somebody, yeah, there you go.
I really like what Counselor Patty did bring up, though. I'm kind of like going through my brain going, okay, if we put a cap number, does that encourage potential future councils to hit that cap? Or does it confuse them more? And that's where I'm really like tugging at it, because it's like, it doesn't seem all that clear. If I was like a new counselor elected, it says that, we get to approve it, but it doesn't really tell us kind of like what our power is either. And I would hate for someone to come in here and just agree to whatever rate without any type of a verbal guidance of what might be a little outrageous. Because it sounds like in the past we've approved some things that have been pretty big, and I don't know that that's in the best interest of our community or the city.
Counselor, are you thinking that, future councils might think they have to hit that as a target? Okay, rather than a ceiling,
Yes.
an occasional?
Yeah, like that maybe somebody, I don't know, I can see it being used as almost like a weapon possibly
Oh, okay.
of, we'll come in at this so that we hope that they come down to their cap of 6.5%. If we ask for 10.3, maybe we can get them to move down to that 6.5 every time.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
what if we say, beginning July 1st, 2023, Republic Services has the opportunity to come to the council annually and request an increase based upon the CPI?
I think
So that
they
it's,
should have to
and
do the
then
work.
so they come and request it. I don't know how we invite that language, but we invite them to request it.
Rather than an automatic,
Yeah. Because
Here.
that was my second thing that I wanted
Okay.
to comment on, was that I would like them to come. And I forget her name, I apologize if you're watching.
KJ.
KJ, but she had mentioned that she would like the opportunity, and I would be happy to, because inviting them here gives us the opportunity to talk with them and give feedback from the community as well, and give the community the opportunity, like they did at the prior council meeting, to put in public comments and voice any concerns or praise that they have.
Mayor Porter.
okay? Go ahead. Somebody?
I agree with Councilor Ort. I want to make sure that it's clear that we're not the ones every year asking them to come, that they're the ones reaching out, that we're in this resolution saying, you may reach out to us, we'd love to have you type thing, not that we're going to put you on the calendar every year at a certain time. I really think that this is their job to do the work, which has been my point. A lot of my point for a lot of this is that they just didn't come, and then here they are, and they want 10.3. So
Okay. Are we
Mr. Mayor,
kind of close to doing something with this tonight, or maybe not? Up to you folks. Yes,
yeah, I
Ben?
just wanted to throw an idea out there because I like what Councilor Herc was saying. I think maybe we do that and maybe set a cap based on the CPIU number for that year. So if the CPIU number is 2%, then the cap that we say they should ask for is 2% above that, or is 4%. Or if the CPIU is 3%, then they can ask for 5.
Well, generally speaking, the CPI would set itself in the sense that that number would be there. So there wouldn't necessarily be an ask plus
Yeah.
CPI. The CPI, in theory, would just set the inflationary rate.
Right.
I mean, I think you could set a cap on what the CPI rate could maximum.
I'm talking about a cap on what they could ask for that's tied to the CPI in some way. I'm just kind of brainstorming out loud, but
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Counselor McDonald,
Oh.
I think what we were talking about prior to was, like, if the CPI rate comes back at 15%, we don't want them to come to us and say, oh, we want a 15% increase in 1 year. So at our discretion, we have the ability to say, no, we're not jumping to 15, we're not going to jump 15% in 1 year type of thing. We have the discretion of lowering it. But to Counselor Hook's point is that we don't want to set a precedent for counselors who, when our time is gone and there's no context to what this is saying, that they just say, oh, well, this is what we've been doing, so we're going to go ahead and improve it, instead of like at your discretion. And they need to come request it. Does that make sense? Because if we go by the CPI rate, then they shouldn't have to come for a big
Right.
ask every 6
Right.
years of a 10% increase. It'll
Yeah.
increase, my thought is, you said, what, 0 to 5% in a year?
Well, that's what it's for, yeah, exactly. Is to kind of simplify these long, drawn-out negotiations, and we should have asked for more years ago, and this
Yeah, I
this
get
whole
that. I
thing
mean,
that,
we always have the power to say no, right? So
Yeah.
there's,
yeah,
I'm just saying, if we want them to come back, we don't want them to, I think, if they're gonna come back annually, then we want to, I guess, set the rules on what they ask for annually at a reasonable rate. And maybe they come back, but they don't ask for anything. Maybe they just come back for, like KJ had said, that she was saying they might just come back to provide information and not ask for any rate increase. So there's no guarantee that'll happen, but I do want to somehow come up with some kind of rule for their asks that says, you have to be within some X distance of the CPI rate, which is going to be our measure of inflation and wage increases and that kind of thing for the public. So I don't want the CPI rate to be 2 and they come asking for 10.
Mayor Porter. Councilor McDonald, I believe I am understanding what you're saying, and I'm wondering if this statement inside the fiscal impact portion might be helpful, if I'm understanding it right. It talks about, is declared to be 5% for the franchisee's gross receipts. What if we somehow used that number as, like, the CPI can't, I don't really know how exactly to answer it, but if the CPI is above, this much percentage above this, 5% increase.
I'm not sure everyone here is kind of understanding the CPI. So
I know that it sets itself, so it could be like 60% increase. It could be crazy 1 year. That's really flying out there with an extra number, but like it could be a really big jump 1 year.
At 60, we're all screwed.
Yeah, 60% we're dealing with World War II
Right,
inflationary rates.
exactly, which doesn't feel far off sometimes.
But I think what, just to keep in mind, what the CPI rate would do would say, this is the inflationary rate of the cost of doing business, accounting for the additional cost of salaries and benefits and equipment and all the mechanisms that go into the business model, right? So in theory, that should set itself so that that the value of the dollar, if you will, that they're receiving remains consistent going forward over time. Hopefully that's an explanation. I think the other component you guys are saying is basically, if you look at resolution number 1030, part number 2, which is just to change the language in there that says something to the effect of beginning July 1st, 2023, and each year thereafter, subject to the city council's approval, Republic Services may request rates shall be increased by a rate based upon the consumer price index using the CPIU index, right?
That's what I like that instead of shall be increased, may request an increase based,
On the CPIU.
based on a rate by the CPIU.
Now, there could be other factors for public service. I'm not trying to speak on their behalf here on this matter, but there could be other factors that they come in and say there's additional fees that were now for recycling or for tipping fees or burning fees or some other tax that they're now responsible for that has impacted their costs, right? So, I mean, I think they can still come and ask and try to justify an additional rate increase. But in theory, once you set this, if we have the rate set in a fair market value, the CPI should keep us in line with the margins that they're looking for and that 8 to 12% profit margins that they're looking for. And then, they can come back and adjust.
I think what I worry about is if the CPI jumps to, let's say, 15% one year, is there a way we can write in a clause that says, yes, we still want to make sure that you guys are getting the money that you need. We want to be fair, but maybe it's like a rollout over the next 3 years, we would try to make up that jump.
Well, I think this goes back to changing that part number 2, just to give a little more flexibility in terms of, the request coming in instead of a firm, this is what it's doing, right? To give the council a little more flexibility and consideration for those kind of situations. And to put, as you guys have said, the onus on them.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So if they come to us and they say, well, the CPA rate is 15%, and we're going to say, no, we're not doing that. And then we have a conversation about what that looks like. So every year, they can come and request an increase, and then we can talk about it. So it's never like it's going to happen. And so I think that takes care of, the expectation is it's going to be anywhere between 0 to 5%. But if there's for whatever reason, fees go up, then that's a conversation that we can have. But this keeps that, this is exactly what I feel like what you're asking for.
Can we somehow change the words to make it sound more like the consumer price index is a guide? That the council should use it as a guide? That way it's clear to public services, that's what we're going to consider when we do this, but it's not like the end all be all. Based on different things happening, we're still going to go through these bullet points that we're supposed to consider for the franchise agreement.
So I can say using the all city CPIU index as a guide.
So let me take a crack at this as I scribble my notes here, so please provide a little grace if I'm off. Beginning July 1st, 2023, and each year thereafter, subject to the city council's annual approval, Republic Services may request for service to be increased by a rate based on the guidance of the consumer price index using the all city CPIU index.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
That
I
would
like
work.
that.
Yep.
Sounds great.
Yep. That would work. For me, at
I
least.
like it. Mayor Porter, I have a question.
Go ahead, Counselor.
So I feel energy moving towards a motion, like a motion, not emotion, a motion. But I want to know, does that mean that all these rates are at 6.5%? Because I'm still stuck at the 5.7 myself, rate increase, even though these sheets are done at 6.5. Because that's where we differed the last time. I think Jordan, you had said, did you say Counselor Ort, you said
I said the 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
And then I had said 5.7, which was that middle, on their sheet that they gave us.
I thought we kind of settled on, eventually settled on 6.5.
Well, we
Maybe
didn't really
not.
We
settle on,
settled
that was
on it
settled for
to
the
get the resolution
drafted.
drafted.
But we wanted to hear what Counselor Patty and Counselor McDonald had to say about these rates. That's why we put this off, really, was because we really felt that since we were, all three of us were so different on where we were comfortable with the rates, we thought it might be good to have the full council's weigh in if possible.
So, Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty. Counselor Hook, could you articulate why you are against the 6.5%? Maybe that'd be helpful to understand.
Well, honestly, I'd like to see it at 4% increase because I feel like that's fair. And if we did 4% over the next 3 years, we could get close to their needs being met and our residents not having a drastic increase in rates during an economic, a really unstable economic time for a lot of our residents. I picked the 5.7 because they had provided to us a PowerPoint or a sheet of data where that seemed to be the middle number that everyone, I think in 2019, had kind of agreed to, if I remember right. It was like right down the center, 5.7, all these different cities. And it was more than the 4%, so it seemed reasonable. And the 6.5 was just too high in my brain. So that's kind of my reasoning behind it. It's also a little bit more than like the 5% that I think is normally stated in the franchise agreement. So it just felt like a good number based on what they've gotten from past councils in past years. And it was still more than my low ball internal number.
If I remember correctly, the 5.7 was what they said was exactly what was needed to get them to their 8% profitability. And from their 8 to 12 range that they were looking for.
No, that's what the 6.5
That was
is.
6.5? Okay.
So, and that's where I came in with I asked, well, what is, so they had a 8 to 12% range of profitability, which is, and they wanted to get us to 10%. Or they wanted a profitability range of 10%. And I said, well, what does it look like if you're at 8%? Because that's still within your range for your stakeholders. And they said that'd be a 6.5 increase
And
on the rates.
Mayor Porter,
Yes.
I wanted to give a little more context.
Oh, thank you.
For me, I don't see where in our franchise agreement, and no one could point it out, where we should even care about this acceptable profitability range in the first year when they haven't come to us every single year for the last 5 years. So for me, I'm not really even taking into serious consideration this acceptable profitability range because to me, it's a made-up number that makes their stakeholders happy. I care about our community. I care about keeping the partnership still healthy, but I care about our rates and our residents.
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty.
Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
Counselor Hook, I would agree with you on some of that, but I just think that if 6.5% is what they're asking to get inside that minimum, there's probably a reason they're doing that. And I would say that we want to maintain Republic as our service provider for this particular community service. I feel like 6.5 is a decent compromise, just as far as getting to where they need to be and finally addressing this. So I personally am in favor of the 6.5, just because if that's what they're asking for to get within this 8 to 12% threshold, then I mean that obtains what they want, and it's lower than what they originally came to us, which was astronomical in my opinion. So 6.5 I'm comfortable with, just maintaining that relationship.
Mayor Porter.
Yes.
So that's why I asked the hard question of if it was going to affect the relationship and if they were going to basically sever services with us if we didn't give them the number that they wanted. And they said that that would not. And so I think there's another conversation to be had next year. I don't think that, doing a 5.7 this year is going to detrimentally hurt our relationship with Republic Services if we know that we plan to have a conversation again next year.
Okay. We ready for some action on this? Something?
Mayor Porter, I'm not really sure how to make the motion for what I want to say is the problem, because there is like this portion here that says, the attachment A to this resolution. So I don't really know how to shift that down, because I would like to make a motion. I guess I can try.
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
you can say as amended and then just state if you want to change the percentage and then with the changes that.
Attachment
Okay,
A?
you can state it like
Okay.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 1030 as amended, which I would like the amendment to shift it from 6.5% for the attachment A down to 5.7%. And then also include the changes that Keith had read off for the number 2 that changed some of the words to, I think it was may, and used it as a guidance. And hopefully we can go back for that on the
Okay.
notes.
That do it? Is there a second, please? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Would someone else like to try?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor
Yes,
Patty.
go ahead.
So I would like to move that we approve resolution number 1030 as amended with Keith's amendments and maintain the 6.5%. I believe your amendments were changing it to Republic Services may request an increase rate based upon the CPIU, using the CPIU. Sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'm going to second.
I have a second. Motion is live. Is there under discussion, please?
Mayor Porter?
Yes.
I want to be very, very clear that I don't think that this is in the best interest of our residents. I think it's too high of an increase. I am going to be an absolute no vote this evening.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Counselor. Other discussion, please. Are we ready for a vote?
Mr. Mayor? I do
Yes.
have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Keith, so in the fiscal impact, the city of Staten has declared 5% franchise receipts from Republic Services. So can you explain, where does that money go, or and what do we use it for?
It goes into it's part of the general fund that comes in, and it gets used for those services. I would say what we were trying to say in that would be that the rate increase wouldn't have us make any recommendations to change the amount of income we were anticipating with Republic Services. So really what we're talking about there is we're not going to make any recommended changes to the budget in terms of revenue we bring in from our franchise agreement. Just because the rate increase wouldn't be a big enough amount to really make much difference. And Suzanne and I had a conversation about that. So that's really what that's talking about.
Okay. So some of the money that goes out to Republic Services, they then pay back to us, and we funnel back into the community?
Yeah, the idea behind the franchise agreements is that these entities receive a benefit of being able to come into our community, and they use city services or they use city right-of-ways. And so this is reimbursement for the consideration of utilizing city-owned materials, in this case, property and right-of-ways, for the exclusive franchise agreement.
Yep.
Thank you.
And they're the only ones that can pick up garbage in our town. Anything else? Alyssa, would you poll the council on that question, please?
Sure. Counselor Mullen,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
No.
Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay. Okay, good, thank you. Let's see, communications from city staff, American Rescue Plan update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to hearken everyone back to my outstanding June 7th, 2021 memo where we had our first discussion in the City Council regarding the American Rescue Act plan. I just wanted to come back and give a brief update. Staff has received additional information on kind of where things stand. So if you remember back at that time, we had talked about an anticipation of money we'd receive as part of the American Rescue Act plan. We had reached out to the League of Oregon Cities and had been notified that it was estimated we'd receive $1,523,507. We were anticipating the money would come in two, what they're calling tranches of payments that we were anticipating at the time of June 7th happening within approximately 30 days. So the money split evenly, with the first payment coming and within that 30-day period, and then the second payment coming exactly 1 year later. So I have some good news, which is what we've been notified now is that we will receive $1,841,407.39, splitting that into two tranches, and I'm using the words that the federal government's using on that. So an initial payment of $920,703.70, with the second payment happening a year later. So we are August 16th, and what has happened is the state of Oregon has still not received the money from the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. So we are still waiting on that. What happened is Oregon decided to wait till after the fiscal year, passed the legislative bill that's in front of the governor. The governor then sends it to the federal government. The federal government then has 30 days to send the money to us, at which point the state then has 30 days to send us our first tranche of money. So that's the latest update on terms of that. If initially, remember, there was a guidance that the federal interim final rule is the technical term they were using for guidance from the Department of Treasury and how the city could use those funds coming from the federal government. And there were other areas, but the three main areas were for water, wastewater, and broadband. So there's been some additional potential changes to that as well. So just want to notify everyone that the Senate recently passed an infrastructure bill that is now going to the House. As part of the infrastructure bill, what we heard in a meeting on Friday was that there was language in there that would allow for cities to have more flexibility on how to use the ARPA funds in terms of doing that. The other component of this to keep in mind is, of course, infrastructure dollars potentially happening from the federal government as part of that bill as well. The second thing we're hearing that I don't know if it's much public, but they're looking to return to earmarks. I'm not as familiar with that, but it's basically congressional earmarks are where projects or plans can be put into bills at the federal level, and then the money comes back to the city level. So all of this is saying that there is still a lot in flux on how this money could potentially be spent and utilized. Still waiting to see. There is an anticipation that the House will take that bill up. It could make changes, which means it would need to go back to the Senate and eventually be signed by the president. So there's still a lot of work in place. So what we've been told from people advising us is to have some patience on this. I wanted to do an update because we anticipated having this money. We're seeing potentially more money. The other caveat is what we heard, there was still 40 cities who have not requested the money from the federal government or from the state, from the federal government. So we are not one of those. I'm happy to say Susanna did a great job of getting it in. There might be some confusion because initially we were told that cities under the size limit of 50,000 would not have to do anything. We did, it's fine. And so if additional funds are not used by cities, they might redistribute those. But at this point, we should just count on the 1.841 million split into two different tranches. So once we have a little more information, once we have the money in place, once we have a little more guidance and a little more direction, what we'll be doing is probably trying to schedule a work session to really talk about how to strategize to use those funds. I just wanted to have this brief conversation during my time here to kind of update everybody on where we stood and to answer any questions about it right now. So could still be up to 60 days before we receive the money. So we're looking at October-ish. We do have until 2024 to earmark the money and 2026 to spend the money. So it's not like there is a pressing need, but we want to be thoughtful and considerate on how we do this. And if there's more flexibility, of course, that would be better as well. So just wanted to do an update and happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
Mayor Porter.
Thank you, Keith. Go ahead, please, Counselor.
I'm wondering if some of this delay might be beneficial for us as a city, if there's other states that have, like, gone forward and gotten the money already and started saying what they're going to use it for. Will it set a precedent that maybe opens up more avenues for us to use the money?
I think what's encouraging potentially is hearing from the LOC on last Friday that there was language in the infrastructure bill that basically gave cities more freedom beyond the interim rule that was set. So following that to make sure it would be law, it would be nice. Not that the recommendations wouldn't be something that we could utilize and would probably be part of that, but I think this provides more opportunities to be careful. The other thing just to consider too is how to be strategic in terms of where to spend the money and where other funds may be able to come from an infrastructure bill, from an earmark, and things of that nature. So I think to start trying to think strategically in terms of the money we're having in and the other monies that may be out there are available. If you remember when we talked about our Gulf Wilco shaft design plan and moving forward last year during a difficult financial time of getting those plans to engineered in sort of a shovel-ready status, what we talked about at the time was looking out in the future and anticipating a potential infrastructure bill coming. So, this is hopefully us seeing it. What we've heard and talked about is last time there was an infrastructure bill, there was a lot of paving that was done because there wasn't projects that were sort of shovel-ready. So I think the key for us at this point will be to I know Lance is still working. It's going to take a year for that engineering. I know he's still working on that, but by the time the infrastructure bill comes in place, but to start having those conversations about looking at some of those additional monies. And the other thing I've shared with all of you, and we need to just continue to share with not only our community, but our elected officials at the state level and even the federal level is, I understand we're a town of 8,000, but we serve so many more people than that. And I can say that because we've talked about this. We have 3 grocery stores in our communities. We have 5 gas stations. We have a Bi-Mart. We have a Winco. We have a feed store. We have a regional hospital that serves so much more than what we do. And so what we really can say is that we are serving the canyon in a greater area. So it's not just the 8,000 that live here. I think 8,224 is a recent estimate, but we're really serving much more. And we know that because of all of those services. A town our size would struggle to have 1 grocery store just on a size of 8,000. We wouldn't have probably more than 1 or 2. We really have the kind of infrastructure that you would see in a city double our size. So where are we supporting that from? We're supporting that from being the regional hub of a lot of communities in this area. So I think it's just important to highlight that and to point out to people the services that we do provide here and to move beyond just the size of our community and really think of us as sort of the regional home for where people do their shopping and come to eat and to run their errands and to do those things. So just want to highlight that because I think it's important to help people who may not live here to understand we're just more than a small rural town.
Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Any other questions for him on that? Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
There have been a number of emails and that are very informative, and I know we'll see more of those. Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Can you just go back to the earmark projects that you were talking about? Because that is something that is separate from the ARPA dollars, right?
Correct. So I'm not old enough to remember congressional earmarks. Well, I guess I am old enough, but I wasn't paying attention. How is that? Basically, what this is going to give congressmen and senators more authority to basically put projects into spending bills at the congressional level. So they refer to them as earmarks. What we've been advised through the conversations we've been having with the League of Oregon Cities, most notably, and some other entities, some of my colleagues have been having this conversation to start to prepare for and to look into kind of what that process is. So how do we make sure that our congressmen know what our projects are and how do we become a priority? And again, having these conversations of why we're important and why what what they can provide us would impact not only our community, but the area that we're surrounding. So I don't know much more than just this is what we're being told to start to look for and to be prepared for. And I wanted to bring it up as you're looking at sort of, to use their term, tranches of money that we're receiving, to start to think of, maybe the best strategy in terms of what can be used for the ARPA funds, what can be used for the infrastructure dollars, what can be used for maybe congressional earmarks, and to start looking at some of our CIPs and some of our long-term plans and visions and utilizing this opportunity to make some meaningful steps forward in terms of some of those council goals, especially in terms of economic development, maybe some housing or some retail and other infrastructure that, could get some of these sites that we have shovel-ready. We have challenges in our community in terms of stormwater. And so, to maybe start to try to manage some of those, just to open up some additional opportunities for us for development. So just want that on the radar for everybody, so you're thinking in terms of that. And when we start looking at, the money we know we have coming in at that 1.8 million, but to start thinking about other resources that may be there. And this is what staff's going to have the challenge to try to be thoughtful in this, but just want to put it on everyone's radar here so you're thinking in the same type terms.
Mr. Mayor, a follow-up to that?
Yes.
Would this be, so we're talking about doing a work session on how to use these funds. Must be a good time to bring up those council goals and kind of rehash those and go over those, especially because Councilor McDonald wasn't there when we made them, but then we can go over them and.
I think there's two big things we look at: the CPI projects that we have, and prioritizing that, and then looking at the council goals as well. I mean, the council goals have things in there that would meet both of those objectives, of course. So maybe trying to prioritize some of those as well. So yeah, I think that's a perfect time to sort of look at that and just start thinking strategically in terms of how to use those dollars.
Thanks.
Hot tar on the roads. Yes. Anyway, other things? Any communication from us and each other? I don't have anything this evening. I have to wander off to the facility here pretty quick, but if there's other things that need to be discussed, we can certainly do it. I don't have anything. Folks, anything? Okay. Let's go home then. Thank you. Productive evening. Good night. Take care.